So here is one of the first surprising findings. Television is more important than food. Oh, well, that could be an advertisement for Samsung or something, but it isn't. It's actually something which was told to me by a Moroccan man whom we met in his house. And we had gone to his house, and we were conducting an interview with him. And at the end, I asked him, you know, what would you do if you had more money? And he said, oh, I would buy more food. And then I asked him, well, what would you do if you had even more money? And he said, well, then I would get better tasting food. So I started feeling a bit bad for him. And we asked him, but if food is so important, how come you have a television and a VCR and a parabolic antenna? Wouldn't you first get food before getting these things? And that's when he told us, you don't understand. Television is more important than food. So was he unusual? Was he strange? Was he delusional? I don't think so, because when you look at other evidence in the world, it suggests that there are other things poor people like to do with their money other than getting food. And here is some data from India. India has had a large economic growth over the last few decades. So you would imagine that as India becomes richer, the problem of hunger would become less of an issue. But in fact, what you see on this graph is that it's exactly the opposite that happened. What you see is that through the 1980s and the early 2000s, the number of people in India who do not eat enough, that is the number of people who eat less than 200 and 400 calories a day, has gone up, not gone down. Some people have concluded when they see this graph that maybe this is because the economic growth has not reached India's poor, and maybe in fact poverty has not declined. But that's not true, because if you look at the number of people in India who live under $1 a day, that number has actually declined over the same period. So there are fewer and fewer very poor people, but then people seem to be eating less and less. So if they have more money, but they eat less and less, it must mean that they've chosen to do something else with their money. And you see that clearly in the answer to the question, do you have enough food? And in fact, the percentage of people who complain that they are lacking food has gone down, even though people are eating less and less. And so that confronts the case that it must be a choice for Indian people to not eat more, even though they have more money available. By this, I don't want you to conclude that malnutrition is not a problem. But it's a problem of nutrition, not a problem of hunger. And we cannot solve this problem of nutrition without understanding why it is that people choose to do something else with their money than buying food. Here is another surprising piece of evidence. This is an experiment that we are going to review in much more detail when we discuss the topic of food and nutrition later in the course. Here's an experiment that was conducted by Robert Jensen and Nolan Miller in China. What they did is they went to households in a region, and they offered them discounts on the price of rice. In this particular region, rice is the main staple that people eat. Therefore, what we should see is that this should be a big help for people to get this discounted price on the price of rice, and they choose particularly poor people. And what they found is the following. When the price of rice went down, people eat less rice, not more rice. So as the price of rice goes down and rice becomes more affordable, we would normally expect that people eat more rice. But in fact, they ate less rice. Why is that? And what does that tell us about the way we should be thinking about food policy in the world? That's the topic that we are going to explore in the sequence of the course that is going to be devoted to hunger and nutrition.